Progressive Congresswoman Cori Bush finds herself in a contentious primary election today against AIPAC-backed candidate Wesley Bell. Bush has been outspoken about her views on the Israel-Hamas war. She has declined to call Hamas a terrorist group and has repeatedly called for a lasting ceasefire and an end to Israel's, quote, genocidal acts. Here she was in April.
We are here to urge the United States government to work to de-escalate the ongoing conflict in the Middle East. We are saying no to war. Stop the bloodshed, stop the violence, stop the trauma. Just stop.
Prosecutor Wesley Bell's campaign has been financed by the pro-Israel lobby, and the groups have poured more than $8 million into attack ads against Bush. It's Bush's unapologetic views on Israel and Gaza that led to Bell driving such a competitive campaign against her. Yet the case he's bringing against Bush has little to do with Israel, and he's arguing that she prioritizes her squad fame in Congress over local issues. So we shall see how that goes. According to the polls, she's down and I think expected to lose, although it would not be a total shock if she holds on. She's up against some powerful moneyed interest, obviously, with AIPAC spending a lot of money against her. It appears to be making a difference, no?
Yeah, it always does. I mean, whenever you have an election where one side can afford to reach voters with information, attack ads at a level that the other candidate can't, if you don't pay much attention to politics and all you see is attack ads and attack ads and attack ads against Cori Bush, you might get into the voting booth and have some negative feelings about Cori Bush. And so, yeah, of course, this amount of money can influence an election in the favor of, the AIPAC-backed candidate, which I will say, if this was any other foreign government that was spending this amount of money in US elections, if there was a group that said, Americans for China PAC, and anytime someone criticized China, their labor policies, US-based companies in China, they bankrolled a candidate to unseat them, I think we would be questioning that in a very different way. Same thing if it was Russia, but because it's Israel, it's not criticized in that way in mainstream media. It's not criticized that way by establishment Democrats or Republicans. But that's really how I see it, and I think that's how a lot of the American people are starting to see it. I don't think we should have these kind of foreign interest groups representing the interests of one country be operating in the United States.
And I do think she has not done herself any favors by saying some kooky things over the years. It recently was recalled to public attention in an interview she did about her book. And in her book, she claimed to have magically healed a woman with cancer tumors by touching her and making them go away. She claimed to cure a sick child by touching him. She claimed to have cured someone's COVID. She's, has said she worked as a faith healer. That's the kind of stuff that gets, when you have a very wealthy, well-connected opponent, who's running with a lot of financial support, including from AIPAC, is able to highlight those damaging things. But some of this stuff that appears in attack ads, it's not made up. It's true stuff. It's stuff she did and said that people find a little weird and uncomfortable.
Yeah, maybe those people are not familiar with Cori Bush simply because she doesn't have the money to run attack ads against the attack ads in the way that the AIPAC bankrolled candidate does. But if she did, she would probably be telling people about her time as a nurse, and that was her role in helping people heal from various illnesses. I think it's ridiculous that they're taking clips
by
of
magically touching them.
I think that many people who are in the faith community do believe that praying for people and do believe that healing energy matters when someone is receiving medical care and going through sickness. And I think to take those words and say, she must be the worst, she's so crazy, to neglect that actually a lot of people in America can relate to that.
She didn't say she prayed for them. She said she touched them and the tumors disappeared after she laid her hands on this person.
Are those her exact
I think
words,
that's a more
Robbie?
magical.
You're positive?
What?
Those are her exact words.
Yes, those are her. That's what she wrote in her book, and what she reiterated in an interview. She said that a homeless lady came up to her and she had tumors and she wanted us to feel them. And I put my hand on her. My hands just began to move, and the lumps were no longer there. She said that. So it's.
I think. I think it's
That's from
ridiculous
the
that this is
forum,
one thing.
A Story of Pain and Perseverance in America, her autobiography.
Yeah, I think Cori Bush being a faith leader and Cori Bush being someone who served as a nurse, her talking about this is not far off from what a lot of people in America believe happens when someone gets sick and how they heal. A lot of people believe that energy is important, beliefs are important, positivity is important. And to take her words there and say she must be the absolute worst, she should not serve in Congress, is ridiculous. Because Cori Bush is someone who was sleeping outside of the Capitol. When people were homeless during COVID and people were struggling and losing their jobs, she was one of the key figures that brought enough public attention to the issue that got people real stimulus in the time of COVID and got real policies passed to address people experiencing homelessness. And she's someone who can represent those people very well as someone who was homeless herself. And so if you want to hate on Cori Bush, saying you hate her because she cares about people and tried to heal strangers is just a wild attack. Explain why, if you're someone who's bankrolling a candidate from the position of AIPAC, the people of St. Louis, Missouri should pick their representative based on how much they support Israel or not, and why they should give up their candidate who's been delivering on policies that actually affect working people in Missouri.
She was also, I should note, investigated by the Department of Justice for spending lavishly on personal security, including to a security guard that she later married, that they had a relationship with. She cooperated with the investigation, and I believe nothing ever specifically came of it, although I think she was knocked for spending so much money on personal security. At the same time, she was perceived to have a kind of abolish the police or defund the police kind of attitude that, well, that's all good for people who need protection in their private, in our cities, but for herself, she has her own private police force that she eventually married to protect her.
She has a security team, Robbie. She's a member of Congress who's experienced threats to her life. And if we know anything, it's people who stand up to power in the United States, like the Boeing whistleblowers, are not the safest people in the country. I don't think many people are going to think her spending money on security is going to be the main thing that is why she can't.
I don't have any problem with her spending money on security. They're going to point out the hypocrisy of her not wanting everyday people to have the security. You say public service so important. People love having public services provided. Well, the one that even I think the government ought to provide, the reason the government exists actually is to provide us public safety, is to provide police services. That's government's quintessential function, is to provide police services, and that it was not fashionable for a time in the progressive left to want that fully invested in, and she was very much in that milieu. So I don't know, but I do think she's going to lose. I don't know about you. It looks not so good for her.
Yeah, we'll see what the people decide, but I think that her positions on public safety are pretty in line with what a lot of people say when you talk to them. People don't like the police. They don't like being pulled over. They don't like the police being around. They make people nervous, and people want to move in the direction of public safety, being people in the community who care about the community. And yes, we would still have maybe officers investigating crimes, ensuring public safety, ensuring that there's less crime, but addressing crime at its root source. There can be, people in the role of public safety and the same amount of public spending, but people are not seeing that the way the police's mandates are today, that they have a duty to prevent crime. So that's something that the Supreme Court has ruled. And I think people want something a little bit different. They want to feel safe. They want personnel to help with that. But there's a question around whether the modern police as it exists today is best equipped to do that legally and in terms of what they're mandated to do at the local level. So I think, Cori Bush's position on the police is not something that makes her a hypocrite because she has personal security. The defund the police movement was about reinvesting that in public safety that was preventing crimes and actually investigating crimes when they do happen in a meaningful way. We've seen the police get increasingly more money, but not resolve more crimes. And I think in a time of mass protests in the United States, people don't want it to be a fight among riot police and protesters. They want a way for people to freely express their views in a way that keeps communities safe, not resulting in police paying huge sums of money in lawsuits because they've used excessive force. The police, as they exist today and operate, are essentially defunding themselves with the millions of dollars they pay in lawsuits because of how they respond to, protests in the street. So I don't think that's going to cost Cori Bush this election. I think it will be determined by the attack ads that AIPAC paid for if she loses.
We'll be back with more Rising right after this.